Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue podcast. It's the Friday show ahead of Everton's Premier League clash with Manchester United. I am your host, Ian Croll, and joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got the Echo sports editor and Blue Room podcaster, Matt Jones. Matt, how are things? All good?
Good. Forward out from Monday.
That was a firm good.
At last. Yeah, I feel great about Everton at the moment. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just very content and settled and happy. So, yeah, good.
And you were there on Monday. We're going to go into detail, obviously, but just very quickly, just very initial thoughts for me. I felt so surreal, the whole thing.
It was weird walking up. Yeah. It didn't feel real at all. But I think my bottom line with it all was that I've always been a bit sceptical about it, but I'm not anymore.
Okay, interesting. Also joining us on today's show, we've got Echo News reporter and Big Blue, Dan Haygarth. Dan, you were also there on Monday. How are things?
Yeah, very well, Ian. All good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I think the same mindset as Matt. A lot going on, but it's all positive stuff. Hopefully we can keep it rolling on Saturday against Manchester United and add to their woes. So today's agenda, as mentioned, we are going to look ahead to Everton's match with Manchester United. Can Moyes take advantage of Ruben Amorim's woes? Let us know in the comments. Score predictions. Before we get into that, though, we are going to go into depth into Monday night's Bramley-Moore Stadium test event. We were all lucky enough to be in attendance on Monday night, and I'd love to hear the lads' thoughts on their experience. Both Matt and Dan wrote articles on the visit as well, so which can be found at the Liverpool Echo website. So we'll come on to that as well. As always, give this video a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. We're not live today. It is actually Thursday. We are doing a bit of a pre-record, but obviously you will be watching and listening to this on Friday ahead of the United game. One final plug before we do get going. This is interesting, this, lads. I think you've been in the WhatsApp group before. Matt, it's been brought to my attention this week that a website called podcast.feedspot.com, a bit of a mouthful, but anyway, has ranked the 25 best reach podcasts. And Royal Blue, the Royal Blue Everton one, is sitting in third place.
Right. So what are we? We're Nottingham Forest.
We're Nottingham Forest.
No, Nottingham Forest are third in the league, aren't they, at the moment?
Oh, right. I mean. Sorry. You're talking about the proper Premier League, aren't you? Well, in this league table, the best reach podcasts, we're just behind Aston Villa, the Claret and Blue podcast, who are in first. And then we've got the Newcastle Everything is Black and White podcast in second. So we're sitting third in the Champions League spaces.
Beating the Reds as well.
Actually beating the Reds. Funnily enough, the Liverpool Blood Red podcast are all the way down in fifth.
That's right.
A little bit of work needs to be done there, I think. I mean, hopefully for their sake, that it's not a sign of like things to come in the real league. For their sake, obviously.
Starting to slowly unravel.
Maybe slightly. But yeah, it was brought to my attention by email this morning, so I thought I'd do a shout out for it. So to be fair, in the podcast description, I'm going to put a link into the 25 best reach podcasts, and you can have a look. And hopefully, within a couple of months, Everton, the Royal Blue podcast, will be number one.
That's right.
Okay, stadium experience then, Matt, from Monday night. Let's just get your thoughts on it first before we go into the article that you wrote, because obviously it was unprecedented. I think I can only way to describe it. Not many football fans will go through a new stadium.
No, it was weird. It was weird, and I think I was speaking to yourself over the weekend and other people in the office, and just sort of saying that on Sunday I was really quite nervous about the whole thing, and sort of wanted to go too in depth into why. I think the main reason was that I was sort of hoping that I wasn't going to walk in there and then just not get it or not feel it, because that stadium is ultimately going to outlive all of us. It's not like we can, have a do-over, is it? And, you can just go back to Goodison Park with a click of your fingers. So I was just a little bit worried that it was nothing to do with the images or how it looked or anything the club would necessarily put out. I think one of the things that makes Goodison great, I'm sure you lads will agree, was the little intangible things and the little idiosyncrasies we've all built up over the years. And I was just sort of thinking, what if we get there and it's just not the same. But I think from what, so we got dropped off in an Uber on Great Harbour Street, and we walked down Dublin Street and then turned the corner right down the Dock Road. And I think as soon as you see it that close, and you're still not that close to it then, you're not up close and personal with it then, but as soon as you see it, the blue light, the actual stadium structure with the night sky backdrop. It's just like it is a breathtaking moment, and I think as you get closer and closer to it, and I think people who maybe have just sort of watched this stadium go up either by the club communications, which have been great, or as myself, which I've sort of done, is getting the train back home to Formby and seeing it from the train line going on the Northern line and watching it come up there. You just don't get the sense of how big it is and how impressive it is, and all these words of grandeur until you're actually outside the dock wall and you stood there and you go through those gates and you get into the fan plaza, and like that was the bit. I don't know if you lads noticed the same. That was the bit where everyone sort of stopped, wasn't it? It was like, can we have a photo? Like with whoever you're with, and like everyone was happy. The club photographers were out there as well, and I think that part of it and getting there, seeing how big it is, but also seeing some like the little touches, the railings with the Archibald Leach patterns on it, going inside and having an escalator in the stadium. Did
you go up it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But it's, even stuff like that was mad, and I think just obviously it's that moment then, isn't it, when you go up the steps and you see the pitch and you feel the vastness of it. And I think there's so, I've sort of said, I think said in my piece, like there's so much space to be filled there, but it's not like a bowl. It's not soulless. It feels like there's so much space to be filled there by Evertonians and then subsequently Evertonian noise as well. And in those small little moments where an Everton player managed to do something against the unbelievable Wigan under-18s. The noise, you can feel the noise reverberate, couldn't you, up and down and back. And to think that stand wasn't even full, to think that the ground was, less than a quarter full. You can't help but get excited about what it's going to be like down there in August when we open on a summer's day, and you've got those views out to the city. You've got the sun coming through the glass window, or what it's going to be like during the first night games and those cup matches, and maybe in this season, next season, European nights there.
Wow!
So just see that's how happy and confident I feel about Everton at the moment. But yeah, and I came out of there and I think my nerves were settled a little bit about leaving Goodison Park, which is still going to be horrible, and I'll bawl my eyes when we walk out to that place for the final time. But it's comforting to know that what we've got to come. And I perversely, and again I said this in my piece, perversely I thought it was quite nice that a Liverpool player scored the first goal there, because it just made me realise that this is still Everton. Yeah, and wherever we go, it's quite nice. It's quite encouraging that the essence of Everton and a very Everton thing happened in that stadium, and knowing that we're going to move there, and the spirit of the club will still hopefully be able to transfix over there. So yeah, that was like a perverse sort of cherry on top of the cake moment for me in a weird sort of way.
Fair enough. You're just a glutton for punishments, quite clearly.
Oh yeah. But that's us, isn't it? Like in a weird sort of way, like it kind of felt like home. Then it's like, yeah, of course these, as much as we might, make progress under Moyes and all of that. Like these sorts of things are just in our DNA, and it's who we are, and it's what the club has sort of been like for the last few years. So it just made it feel a little bit like home in a weird sort of way.
No, absolutely. I mean, Dan, you were there as well. I guess like there's a lot of rival fans suggesting, it's generic, it's a bowl. I mean, the outside of it couldn't be any less generic if it tried. It's a mix of modern with traditional. Yeah. And the inside, I get the description of a bowl. However, that is modern stadia, I guess. I don't know, for you, what do you want? Do you want just 4 stands with gaps in, which is obviously what Goodison is, kind of what Anfield is. I think Wolves, Villa Park, or really good stadiums in their own right, but this is different. What was your experience on Monday?
Well, I think that's an interesting point, because you're never going to get a batch of stadiums again like Goodison, Anfield, Villa Park that are in amongst terrace houses and are built there and are in keeping with the housing around and sort of rooted in a community. It's changed. If you are going to build a stadium now, like so many of them in the past 20 years have been in sort of like out of town and sort of generic retail park. We almost had that with Kirby. And this is on the edge of the city centre. It fits. It's in keeping with the Liverpool waterfront, that has that warehousey look on the brick before you go up to the metal. And then it just looks, I think exterior, it looks amazing. I don't think it is. I mean, it needs more Everton touches, I think. Like when you're walking around the plaza beforehand, you do need some 1878, Nil Satis, that sort of stuff, I think. But I think it looks amazing from the outside. I don't think it is generic at all. And, you see the pictures that our photographers get over from the Wirral. It looks when it catches the sun on the waterfront, it looks fantastic. So, it's not something like, I don't know if it's still called the Reebok, but Bolton or Wigan that are just out of town and sort of off an A road. It's not generic like that. It is in the city. It's on the waterfront, and I think it's a great addition to the waterfront. Yeah, visually.
Absolutely. I mean, the branding. Me and Dave Powell did a podcast on Wednesday, and we discussed why there's not branding on the stadium as of yet. I mean, there's a lot of theories, but maybe something to do with the fact that with the stadium naming and rights, they just want a blank slate, a clean slate, and then that's obviously going to come. I mean, surely it's going to come, isn't it? The branding, you would expect it to. I mean, both you lads wrote a piece, and if you want to go and read them, you can do so at the Liverpool Echo website. Dan, your headline was, "I never wanted to leave Goodison, but one thing took my breath away." So that was the headline.
Yeah.
And the first line I found quite poignant, really, is Everton leaving Goodison Park will break my heart. Now, what I'm trying to do here is create debate between both of you, because obviously I know you're both on board with moving, I know, but obviously, Dan, everyone doesn't want to leave Goodison, but we know we've got to leave, and we're going to a far superior home. In effect, but tell us about your piece and everything that goes on with it.
So it's odd, as the Echo's regeneration reporter, this is a big regeneration thing, and I should always be very excited about big developments in the city, and I am. But the emotional ties we all have to Goodison, I found almost too much to sort of get beyond. Like, I've not really allowed myself to get excited about Bramley-Moore yet, because the idea of leaving Goodison is so sad. I love that place. We all love that place, and so many memories there, and it's not unique, but we think it's unique, and it is everything that's good about English football. I think the tradition and the history and the way it's built. But then, you get in. I think, but similar to Matt, I got into Bramley-Moore, and you walk up the stairs and you leave the concourse into the south stand, and you look at it and you think, yeah, okay, I get it now. Like, I'm on board with this, and that was the breathtaking moment for everyone. I think you come out of that concourse and you look at it and think, yeah, God, this is unbelievable. This will be unbelievable for Everton. And I think as the game went on, you realise that south stand has been built really well. I think you still feel, I was 38 rows up in the upper. You're on top of you're still on top of the opposition keeper. When Everton are attacking that goal, needing a goal in the second half of the game next season, it'll be an unbelievable ace in Everton's pack, I think, which is what I wrote. And I even got it. I was interviewing fans, so I missed the goal we got back. So I was in the concourse chatting to fans, but that noise, even as a penalty when we're losing 2-0 to Wigan in an under-18s friendly, just carried. And when you have 53,000 people in there, I think it'll be fantastic. And the first feel of an Everton match day made me realise, we are leaving County Road, and all that comes with that, and the pubs and the chippies and everything. But you walk along the Dock Road, you get to the Bramley-Moore, you have people spilling out there having a beer, and it felt like an Everton match day to me.
Sense of community.
Yeah, which was what I wanted. Yeah. And so it helped me get over my my fears of leaving Goodison for sure.
Okay, well, if you type in Dan Haygarth, Liverpool Echo into Google, you will find Dan's piece on his byline page. Just give it a little search. Definitely worth a read. Matt, you did the same. You wrote an article, and to be honest, your headline was exactly how I felt afterwards, which I'll read out. So you've said, well, the headline says, "I couldn't sleep after first visit to New Everton Stadium. My mind was racing with what I saw. That just sums up everything that I felt Monday night into Tuesday morning, and probably beyond. I just couldn't sleep Monday when I got in, and I was absolutely shattered and freezing all at the same time."
Yeah, and it's sort of like, I sort of started the piece by saying I couldn't sleep on Sunday because I was nervous about it, and obviously finishing it, getting back on Monday night, like I'm sure we've all had those moments like that. You know, after we've like had a big win in a night game, and you get home and you just you want to watch match of the day if it's on, you watch the highlights, and then you just sort of sat there scrolling, and you go to bed and your mind's still racing. You do that thing you shouldn't do when you want to try and get to sleep, and you get your phone and you carry on reading again. And in the end, I think it was my wife was like, "Turn your phone off on Monday night." The light's getting in my eyes. So I put it away under threat from her. But yeah, it was one of those where like you just want to. And again, like it's that feeling like you get when you win. You just want to see what everybody else has had to say about the experience and what they've gone through, and just seeing all those photos of people delighted, and there's like on the way in, like we asked like a lad to take a photo of the four of us, and Like I'll never forget, like sort of handed the phone to him, and he was like still looking up at the ground like that. He could like barely peel his eyes away from it, and he said, "Yeah, we'll take one. Like, I'll take as many as you want on a night like this. It's absolutely boss, isn't it?" And I think like that sort of people not being able to take their eyes off it, like I think is something that will definitely stick with me. But yeah, it's just like I feel very similar to Dan in terms of my emotions towards Goodison, and like I think what's compounded my sort of skepticism about it over the years is how badly run we've been. And like every time I've gone past that, I've not really thought this is going to be a brand new dawn for Everton necessarily. I thought,
same old.
How are we going to pay for that if we're in the Championship, or we've got an owner that's absent and can't get any money because it's all tied up in Russia? And then the other factor is if we're in the Championship, what kind of team are we going to be watching in there? And thankfully, that sort of sense of existential dread as a Premier League club, or even existential dread as a football club, has gone in the last month, because we've got new owners who seem to have us on a more sure financial footing, and David Moyes has effectively confirmed already we're going to be a Premier League team next year with the performances we've had recently. So I think that going and then actually going there itself has just sort of got rid of like almost all the skepticism I had about it. I think I'm sure there'll be some things we'll come on to talk about, most notably around the transport, which still clearly needs a lot of work and is a bit of a worry for a lot of people. But just being there and experiencing it, it's so hard to explain. And I think that the thing that's sort of come out of it, and I've seen a lot of people talk about, is it's that scale. Like you will not realize how big and how vast and how great it feels being in there until you're actually in that stadium, or until you're outside in that fan plaza.
Now, every picture and video that I've seen before, and this is no detriment to the video taker or the picture taker, it just didn't do it justice to what I saw with my own eyes. And you can only just go and view it yourself, can't you?
It's like, when you go on holiday and like you go somewhere boss with a great view, and you take a picture of it and you send it to like your mates or your parents or whatever, and you look at the photo and goes, looks rubbish that compared to what I'm actually seeing there. It's a bit like that. Like it's a bit like seeing a great view, taking a photo and thinking it doesn't do it justice. Like that's exactly what the ground's like.
No, absolutely. I mean, just in terms of location, we'll touch on the transportation and the infrastructure. We did in Wednesday's pod with Dave Parle. I mean, in terms of location, one of the lines from your pieces here says, I've always been totally on board about the move to the docks. Now, obviously over the past 20, 30 years, a number of locations kind of been mooted for it. A new Everton stadium, we obviously had the King's Dock, Walton Park, I think around Croxteth, wasn't it? Is it Stonedale, was it? For you, is this the best possible outcome?
Oh, massively. And I think this is going to be Moshiri's legacy, isn't it? And I think, one of the things that was talked about when this all started getting ramped up was that, if he takes us to the dock, then that is some positive aspect of his legacy secured. But you only have to go back like, what, five years, maybe a little bit more. And like how mad did the prospect of Everton moving to the docks feel? Like how distant did that feel after the way in which the King's Dock like collapsed, and all those options you mentioned there that were getting talked about? Like the idea of Everton moving to the docks was just, it felt like a pipe dream again, really, didn't it? In terms of the work that would have to be done, the money that had to be put up. And like, I totally disagree with the notion that this is a bowl of a stadium, or, one out the box or something like that. Yeah. That people might think it's not, people, obviously fans might think it is. That's fine. I don't really care, to be honest. But what you cannot dispute is that this is a proper, unique location. I've been to watch Everton all over this country. I've been to watch them in Europe a few times. I've been to loads and loads of stadiums. There is nothing like this in terms of the build up to it, the walk, the setting of it, and how it's going to look from obviously us walking up to it on this side of the water, and as you mentioned that earlier, Dan, people who will get to see it from the Wirral or coming into the city on ships, or even like flying in to John Lennon and stuff like that. So like the location is brilliant. I think it's going to take some time for things to settle down there. We went into Murphy's Distillery beforehand, which was great, boss atmosphere in there. But like they're building an extra long bar because like the extra demand they get in there. Like the people, the queues to get into the Bramley-Moore at one point looked absolutely enormous, and things will ultimately sprout up around there, and I think we'll find the way. So yeah, in terms of location, like I definitely would ask for better. It looks amazing. It's not far from town either, if you want to walk. But again, the transport's a potential issue. But I think it's just aesthetically, couldn't think of anything better, really.
Those bars will have to start getting like outdoor kegs, won't they?
Yeah.
Easy access. I don't know how legal that might be
Yeah.
or whatever, but
I think
it'll be interesting.
I think like just anything on or near water just always looks better, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Like if you go into if you go the Echo's great pub right is sat next to me. Yeah. I always say, like, if you can get into a boozer which has got like a stream or a river next to it, it just feels better, doesn't it? There's something about being near water which I think is quite comforting, which maybe we might need on to watch Everton.
Is this you telling us that you're going to jump in the docks after an Everton win? Or?
Oh, after the win, yeah. After the defeat.
Well,
yeah.
after the defeat, I suppose.
Maybe not how cold it was on Monday. I'd take me wetsuit on under me big coat and all that. Yeah.
Dan, just touch on this a little bit because there's been a lot of debate on the capacity of things, and it's obviously just under 53. What are your thoughts on capacity? Is it big enough? Just about right? Obviously, there's talk of maybe at some point in the future it could be extended in a couple of ways. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a big waiting list now, isn't there, for season tickets? So you'd assume you could build it bigger. And such as a demand for Premier League football tickets now, you could probably build stadiums as big as you want and people would go. But I think 50, 52, 53 seems like a decent starting point. There is potential to expand, isn't there, I think? So, yeah, I mean, 60 would be great, I think. In the future, that feels really serious, 60,000 people.
Would the football on the pitch need to be high end if it was going to be,
I think
60,
so, yeah.
65?
I think you almost have to justify those huge grounds, don't you? Like it's the Emirates about 60. Like, I think you'd have to be at that end of the table if you wanted a 60,000 seater stadium. Everton's quite unique in that no matter how bad the football is, fans keep coming, and that's a great thing. Like, Goodison will never not be full, despite how poor the football is on the field. So Bramley-Moore, I imagine, will be similar. So yeah, I mean, it seems like a sensible starting point, I think. But yeah, I'd love it to be bigger as we hopefully are on the right path as a football club. Yeah.
I mean, 55 was meted for the King's Dock, wasn't it, all those years ago? So it's a little bit less, but I guess revenue-wise, there's a lot more hospitality probably in that stadium than there probably would have been for the King's Dock.
Yeah, like, I don't really know enough about football finances or anything like that in terms of like what the extra capacity would mean or what it would cost us. But like, I'm happy with the capacity just purely because I absolutely hate it when stadiums have got big empty pockets around. And I feel like if we'd gone 60 or higher, some of those midweek League Cup games or some of those, winter Premier League games, you could just imagine it being a little bit empty. And I think that would look a little bit sad. So purely from that point of view, I don't know anything about football finance or anything like that. That's why I'm relatively happy with how it is.
There's also been a lot of talk on the South Stand wall, if that's what you want to call it, the wall at the back of the lower south. A lot of debate on if anything can be done to that. I guess maybe flags draped over it, painted a different colour. But I spoke to you before, Matt, didn't I, about the Archibald Leach pattern. A lot of talk on whether that could be incorporated in. I've seen a lot of pictures of fan artwork. What, if anything, do you make of that?
Well, I think something can be done about it, can't I? I think
do you like it? Or
no, I don't like it, to be honest. No, and I think it's. I think when we got the initial sketches of it, I think that South Stand was just all sort of one, wasn't it? Like, it wasn't like tiers, and I think they were quite keen to play down the fact that it's a single stand, but obviously, I think purely from safety reasons, isn't it? That's why they've got to have it, because
it's a lower and upper, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lower and upper because the lower is obviously safe standing with rails and stuff, and the upper bit is not. But like, surely there's something that could be done about it. Even if you just like paint it like I think Brentford's ground, which is like painted in the colour of different fans potentially to make it look like it's for like you can have flags in there. I'm not like I thought on the picture the club put out, didn't they, from the opposite end of that stand full with the wall, like
everyone in it, wasn't it?
It is a bit of an eyesore, but I think what the club, when they sent the email out, which we got for going to it with the ballot, and the thing that they were keen to stress, and it was like, this is still not finished. There is still loads to do, and the Everton touch is like having, as you mentioned, like having 1878 or something around there, or like the little flourishes that are going to make it Everton-y, for the want of a better word. They'll come, and I'm sure that wall, like, there's nowhere they'll leave it like that. Surely there'll be flags, it'll be painted or something completely different.
I personally not really fussed, to be honest. It's my seat is literally right in front of that.
Were you stood up on Monday?
Well, my seat wasn't there for the test event.
Right, okay.
So I was more southeast corner, right by the corner flag, a little bit further down, which incidentally was probably a bit better for me, personal preferences. where we were, because I did feel like I was really steep at the top of the south and really on top of the net. And it's just getting used to it, I guess, isn't it? It's one of them.
I suppose on a match, on a proper match day,
Yeah.
the idea is that everybody in that south stand will be stood up, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and I think on that picture, everyone's kind of sat down. So by virtue of going up a bit higher, that wall will look a little bit thinner, will it? Yeah.
I mean, from what I can remember, and I think a lot of and the picture as well, everyone who was kind of on that back row was stood up, but we did sit down when we were in the corner. But I guess it's standings in the description, so I think if people are standing, then it is what it is. I mean, the Archibald Leach, it's obviously synonymous with Everton. Should we bring it with us? I don't know.
I quite like the idea, but that might just be my sentimental side. But yeah, I like that idea. I think it does need Everton touches inside. Like, I'm quite surprised the seats are all blue, aren't they?
Yes.
Rather than having Everton or AFC written in white seats, which I would have done as well. I quite like that. I know it doesn't really matter when the ground's full, but it's just those sort of images of what the ground looks like, like the Goodison one we got on the screen behind you. So yeah, I'd have the Archibald Leach crosses on the concrete walls, and I'd have white seats spelling EFC or something, I think, inside, if I was being particularly picky.
Okay. Let's stick with you, Dan, and move on to transportation and infrastructure. I guess you are the perfect person to speak to.
We've done a lot on this on the past few days. It's not really good enough, really. That Sandhills after the game, the crowds and the wait there.
Did you do that walk?
No, I walked back into the office. I just decided to leave it. I thought by the time you've queued to get on a train back to Moorfields, you would have walked it, so I did. But the pictures we were sending, Tony Scott sent a picture in as well, didn't he? It just looked awful. So crowded, so busy. And, they've had... Everton picked this site in pre-pandemic, wasn't it? 2019, 2018, maybe? So they've had years. They've had at least 5 years to prepare for this. And it feels like the public transport hasn't been improved at all, really. It's not good. And it is a worry that I think access to a site that's not far out of the city centre is so poor. I think the only good addition was the park and ride from Bootle Strand. So if you're from sort of north, Bootle and further north, that's great. But I think from anywhere else in the city, it feels needlessly hard to get to, which is odd considering it's so close to the city centre. And the Sandhills fan park, as they called it, just isn't good enough, is it? And there've been lots of people complaining, and I know Steve Rovens said that they'll be he's responded and said they'll be making changes and things like that. But I just think they should have been prepared, because this is a test event with 10,000 people, and Sandhills didn't look like it could cope with that. So when there are 50,000 people coming, and lots of whom will get the train, they need a better solution. They really do.
I'm obviously just playing devil's advocate. I mean, personally, from my point of view, I'm not going to be using that way, because I'm not going to come from that way. So again, we discussed this with Dave Powell, and he said very similar to you. But what could have been done other than building a new, bigger Sandhills new station? What can be done now? Because that's not going to happen, is it? Before
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know the Liverpool Liberal Democrats are suggesting a tram. That feels quite ambitious, because Liverpool Merseyside has planned to have trams before and it's never worked. I know the glider that Rotherham wants to introduce might go to the ground. So there are those solutions. But in terms of trains, I'm not sure what they could do. It's just they've got to have a better fan management system at Sandhills, because the way they presented those railings as this sort of brand new solution, they've got to be wiser than that. Because I use Kirkdale for Goodison at the moment, and that largely works okay. I know lots of people don't get the train, and it's still a bit of a walk.
What's the queues like for that, though? Because I did see Tony's picture, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate on it all.
Yeah,
I just feel like it's a different location. You're using different transportation. There's surely going to be queues regardless of how big things are, or how many carriages or buses there are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the solution is more frequent trains, or Merseyrail running 8 carriage trains rather than 4 during match times. It's always surprised me when I get the train to Kirkdale on a match day that they don't double up the carriages.
Well, that's a clear, obvious solution, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd think so. So there's that. I think, maybe they have to look at sort of more buses in and out, because they have those road closures. And that's going to be interesting, I think, going forward. Say there's a night game. Yeah. They're going to close if they're going to close Regent Road, a couple of hours before a night game, stuff like that. I guess that's the point of a test event, isn't it? It's to iron these things out. But I think the problem was the test event showed that there were far more problems with public transport than anyone was predicting, I think.
They're not going to build a train station right by the ground, though, are they? That's not going to be feasible.
They're not going to do that, no, because I think already on that line you have Moorfields and Sandhills and then Kirkdale in quite quick succession. And, so they're probably, they're not going to build a new train station. The train stations they're building at the minute are, in the Baltic and elsewhere. So I think the key has to be more capacity on the trains, running them more frequently on match days, maybe having a match day timetable rather than sticking to the 15 minute on each line, isn't it? So yeah, I think as an easy solution, 8 carriages rather than 4.
It just feels like it just feels like with that, like Sandhills is like such a busy station anyway, isn't it? Obviously because you've got all the trains coming from town that go north of the city up that way, and then you've got them coming in from 3 different lines, haven't you? You've got the Kirby line, Ormskirk line, and obviously from Southport as well.
Yeah.
And like, I think when I've, in the past, I think when I've seen people talking about, Merseyrail putting bigger trains on match days, like through Kirkdale and back into town, one of the things they've always said is sort of like, well, we haven't got enough trains effectively to do that. So I don't like it has been, it does feel like a massive oversight, doesn't it? And I suppose like the other thing that's unique about Sandhills, maybe for people who don't, aren't necessarily from the area or don't get the train that way, is that it's a single platform as well, isn't it? So you've got one platform in the middle and then, basically the 2 train lines back into town and away from town are sandwiching you. And that instantly is, a safety issue, isn't it, as well? Like having that there.
Sorry to interrupt, but here's me saying there needs to be more carriages. Kind of feasibly have more carriages.
That's it as well.
Then, if that's the case.
How many trains an hour come through there now as it is from it's probably up there with one of the busiest stations on the network, isn't it, already? So
it's probably more frequent trains. I think you suggested that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So but that's the thing, like Sandhills is on those 3 Northern Line lines, but I guess, I get the Hunts Cross Ormskirk line, and you very rarely get 8 carriages on that. Like they are testing the doubling up the trains at the minute, so putting the 2-4 carriages together, which has taken its time with Merseyrail, but I think you'd almost need that as standard on every train going through Sandhills around an Everton match day, I think would be the easiest way. But then that waiting area or fan zone that is just railings that have been sort of blown over in the wind, that you need a better system for the wait than that, because at Kirkdale, I think it manages because people just almost queue on to the pavement and it feels safer. But as Matt says, but like you're on different platforms as well. So Sandhills they've got to do something more than just the fan zone. Just
like, I don't know, the answer to this, but like, is there any responsibility on Everton in all this, or is it purely?
I'm sure Everton will be speaking to Merseyrail and the City Region Combined Authority, but you would like to have thought that more thought had gone into it than seemingly what has shown up. Liam, our political editor, has been sort of covering all of it and speaking to Steve Rotherham, but it is primarily Steve Rotherham and his team's responsibility because they run Merseyrail and Merseyrail operate that line. And I remember they put the video out on social media probably a couple of weeks ago now, showing the fan zone, and people were very unimpressed, and that sort of gave the impression that they thought that was almost job done, but it clearly isn't. There has to be improvements made.
I mean, I don't want to be like sarcastic here, but Everton have obviously described it as the most accessible stadium in the country. Yeah. You don't want it to be inaccessible from the outside, do you know what I mean? Well, certainly for people with disabilities and stuff like that.
Well, I think today the Everton Disabled Supporters Association have put a statement out, haven't they, in regards to blue badge holders and that potentially being solved to a degree. But like, I think we can all laugh at the video that Steve Rotherham put out and whatever. And well, like I think like this could have a knock-on effect on what happens inside the stadium as well, because like we talked about those games in the League Cup on a Wednesday night or in the cold and midweek. Yeah. Like if Sandhills is a nightmare, like people are just going to get off early, like especially on those like games, and you don't want the stadium emptying just because of the platform being a nightmare, and it's a nightmare to get home. And I think the club will obviously try and encourage people to walk, won't they? I mean, they've got to cycle. Like, I mean, I don't know. Do you know anyone who's ever cycled to the match in your life? Like that feels like
it could pick up.
But like, and I think they'll want people to stick around after the game as well, won't they? Like, so I think like the 3 o'clock kickoff, August, we get an August, early kickoff or late kickoff, I think people will happily stick around with to have a drink in the ground. If they've got one of those, in the upper south, stand by the window and look out to the city, sun coming. Like, no,
They're going to do that, aren't they?
yeah, they are going to do that. Yeah,
certain areas open.
So, which would be great, and that might ease some of the congestion going into Sandhills. But those midweek games when you just want to get home, like after being in the cold, like people just get off early ultimately because if it's such a nightmare. So I think they need to sort it. I mean, I've got no idea what the solution is, but clearly it needs to be better than a few railings sort of flung up outside.
I mean, another thing that they've done, Dan, is the car parking restrictions.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I think we all were expecting that. However, to be 365 days a year is quite literally ridiculous, in my opinion. Goodison's not that now. Anfield's not that now. Why does Bramley-Moore, the area around Bramley-Moore, have to be that now as well? It's silly for me.
Yeah, it's not gone down well, has it? The businesses around there, be it hospitality or whatever, just it sounds like they are really angry. A lot of them are saying they weren't properly consulted by the council as well. And I know the council are, again, sort of seeing it as work in progress, but it just feels on every point the transport issues threaten to slightly take a shine off this, because it's all well and good having a beautiful new ground, but if people struggle to operate businesses around it, and if people struggle to get there, that really is a problem, because you're defeating it already, and so I don't know. I don't know what their solutions will be, but it feels like more thought should have gone into this, considering Everton started building 3.5 years ago, and the site has been selected as that. And you've also got, on a regeneration standpoint, you've got the Liverpool Waters development that it's part of. You've got a huge new. It's almost going to be one of the focal points of a huge new neighbourhood on the waterfront. In the northern sides of the waterfront. So for that to function properly as well as a neighbourhood, as a place for people to live, it does need to function 365 days a year. And at the minute, match days are going to be an issue. But yeah, I think lots of change and improvement is needed to sew the whole project together, really.
I mean, we'll finish off on this now, because I don't want to. We've gone on it too long. I can hear people in the comments saying, "Stop moaning about it." Like, to be fair, we're not. We're just highlighting it, I guess.
Yeah.
And safety is paramount.
Yeah, absolutely.
For everyone going to the stadium. There was obviously a lot of road closures that I saw on Monday. I mean, people who work for the club, players, whatever, are going to have to get access to that. Surely there's going to be cars going down there as well. So it's going to be something that they're going to have to do as well. Yeah,
I didn't get a proper look at the impact of the road closure, because myself and Andy, our photographer, were in the closed area chatting to fans, interviewing people, getting pictures. But it already felt like traffic was building up, around there and around Vauxhall. I don't know how. How the players will get in and out, really.
There was a point where it was blocked off by cones.
Yeah.
And then further down, probably about 50 metres further down, there was a point where there was no way a car was getting past. Yeah. And that was the end towards town. So obviously I didn't see the other end. But I don't know.
We got off, like we said, from Great Howard Street in our Uber. And effectively, so if anyone doesn't know the geography, the Dock Road is effectively nearest the water, isn't it? And then there's a few roads parallel to that. Sorry, not parallel, adjacent to that, that sort of go up to Great Howard Street, which is sort of parallel to the Dock Road. So we got off there, but basically all those little roads that filter down to the front were all blocked off by cones. So the closest you could get in a taxi was getting out there. I think, it took us about 15 minutes walk from there, but I know people who actually ended up getting a bit closer, and it took them probably less than 10. But again, the caveat that this was 10,000 people, not 55,000 people.
It took me about 15, 20 minutes from Old Hall Street.
Same for me.
However, that was with 10,000 people. 53,000 people. There might
just
be a
walking?
bit more congestion. Yeah, just walking. Okay. So that wasn't too bad at all. Okay, let's we're not being negative on it. We've talked about our experiences on Monday, and absolutely spectacular. But there obviously are a few issues that we need to get over, and hopefully that will happen over time. Should we talk about football?
Yes. Why not?
I mean, we're nearly 40 minutes talking about the stadium. Can Everton add to Manchester United's woes on Saturday?
Yes.
Absolutely. The smile's back on his face now.
Oh my God. We owe these a beating so much.
We do, to be fair.
The amount of times we've played them at Old Trafford or at Goodison, and they've been dreadful, and you're thinking, come on, surely let's get after these. And we've just, completely flapped it. I was at the 4-0 back in, when was it? December.
The away one.
Goodness me, like that. I think that was probably the lowest point on the dice. Maybe you could say. Like,
weird one, because the first half an hour was pretty good, and then we just fell apart, didn't we?
Oh God, it was horrific, and like, you know, left the ground, having walking up back to my seat just after half time, heard them score the third goal, just turned around and went home. Like that's how disillusioned it all was at that point. And then obviously we had the points deduction game, didn't we, where everyone was so ramped up and ready to go with the placards, and then Garnacho scores the best goal you've ever seen after 3 minutes, just to kill the atmosphere off. But they are genuinely appalling, aren't they, at the moment? Like, and they haven't got Martial either.
He did score against us a lot, didn't he?
So he's gone. I don't know if there's he's going to be the new terrible striker they've got, who only ever scores against us. But
I thought he was quite good against Tottenham.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought he was okay. I don't know. That was just.
I think the only time I've seen him do anything was against us.
I spoke to Liam Thorpe about it, and even he said he was surprised at how well he played.
Fair enough. But yeah, we can beat them, and we should beat them, because we're playing pretty well at the moment. I think Goodison will be buzzing on Saturday. Obviously, we've got the Everton Giants thing, haven't we, with four the lads from the 80s at half time. I think the 1878 are doing banners, and there's just something very 12:30 about Everton Man United at Goodison, isn't there? It feels like that's always 12:30, and I think surely this time, with our confidence and the way in which Moyes has got the lads playing, compared to them just being in complete disarray with loads of injuries themselves, we will surely get the job done on Saturday.
He's surprised at how bad United actually are. I mean, obviously under Ten Hag, he still won a couple of trophies, but I just feel like, off the field matters, they're kind of rivaling Everton for how badly they've been run over the years. And I've seen just money stats wise, like they had to pay Ten Hag and his team off, and that was like £14 million. And then even Dan Ashworth, they spent like £3 million to get him, and then they had to spend £4 million to get rid of him. Yeah. There's so much money in football now that it's almost like rewarding failure. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whether it was right or wrong to sack Ten Hag or Dan Ashworth, that's someone else's opinion. But Ruben Amorim hasn't had much to say, really. He hasn't changed things around, has he?
No, it's quite telling that the only sort of remnant of a new manager bounce he got was against Sean Dyche's Everton. I think that sort of sums up Amorim. Like, they've not got better, have they? Like, they're not playing good football. I watched them in the Europa League against Steaua Bucharest, and they beat them, but that was turgid. It was really tough viewing, and they seem to have no real inspiration going forward, and it feels like the sort of game Everton should win, and I just hope it doesn't come back to bite us. There's one of these games where you go into knowing you're playing better than them, you're above them in the league, there's no reason why you shouldn't beat them. So don't treat them as Manchester United that you should be scared of. Just play them as a bottom half of the table team, which they really are this season. They have been so poor. So yeah, they're abysmally run, and Radcliffe doesn't seem to have done anything sort of.
He's been worse than the Glazers.
Yeah, I was going to say,
sacking everyone, hasn't he?
There's nothing promising there, and seems to think that making the kitchen staff redundant is going to make them a better football club. Every decision is baffling, and so yeah, I'd love it. It feels like it's another landmark on the Goodison farewell tour, isn't it? United at home is a big game, and despite us, not beating them for a while, there've been some great ones. Was it under Marco Silva we beat them 4-0 or 4-1?
4-0, yeah.
And then Big Dunk 1-0 in 2004-5. So something like that.
Fellaini as well.
Fellaini, first day of the season. So something like that feels like the appropriate way, and yeah, it'd be a great one to win. And that's sort of, do you reckon that confirms us safe if we beat them? How many points does that put on?
Probably.
33,
I think I said 2 more wins the other day, but probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think any of that bottom 3 are getting to 30?
Probably not.
No, probably not. I just, you never know. You hate to be...
You want to have that cushion, don't you?
Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, they've got injury concerns, like us.
Yeah.
Amorim, he just seems to be so stubborn and rigid in his approach, unlike David Moyes, who seems to be quite flexible. And I feel like if you're a manager who's got money to spend and you think this is my way or the highway, because you'd be able to bring in players who can fit that system, I think that's fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even in the summer, there's talk of United not having the money to be able to bring in the players that he wants for that system. I just find it fascinating that he's being so stubborn, and it's not as if he's etching out draws. They're actually losing a lot of the games.
Yeah. I feel like he's getting away with quite a lot, just because of the way the club. Like, I mean, he is not the biggest problem there, is he? I think we all can safely say that. But it doesn't mean he's necessarily a really good manager. And like you said, like it's hard to. He got a. I think the best he played by a mile was at Liverpool, wasn't it? Where I think they were actually quite good in the second half, and like, it felt like from that point on, maybe his coaching is starting to come in. I think that was the first time he had a full week with the squad, and all the talk was like, well, this is where it all starts now, and it's just not, has it? They've had a few shocking results since then as well. I think when he spoke at his press conferences, sometimes he's looked a little bit clueless. And doesn't really come across as someone very authoritative. There's that story about him smashing up the telly in the dressing room as well, wasn't it? After one of the defeats that they had. So yeah, they're just a complete mess. And I was listening to or saw on the overlap the other week, Paul Scholes talking about how they've been desperate for a left wing back. And they signed one. I think his name's Dogu, is it? And in his first game, he played him at right wing back. Like it's just stuff like that. Like, but I think he's fortunately for him, he's still in that phase that managers can get in sometimes, isn't it? Where when they're so bad, the club is so badly run that fans will happily turn the nose up or turn a blind eye to a lot of stuff because they're just clinging on to this hope that this fella's going to eventually steer them through it. But I mean, injuries wise, they have got loads, haven't they? I think. Diallo's probably been their best player, has he, would you say? Recently, he's out injured until the rest of the season. I think he was really good against us in that 4-0. Like, I think Casemiro and Fernandes have been playing in centre mid. Martinez is out injured, isn't he, as well? So they've got big issues. But like, even if they had like a full-strength team, I got still sort of fancy us on Saturday. So yeah, it'd be great to be like 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go and be able to sing Going Down to them, wouldn't it? Like, imagine that. That'll be a marvellous way to sort of start the weekend.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's to the point now where we were actually disappointed if we don't win.
Yeah.
That's how bad they are and how our resurgence in form has been highlighted, I guess.
Definitely. It feels like it's come at the right time for us as a club. And I'd be really pleased for Moyes as well to get one over United for him on a personal level. But yeah, it's interesting with Amorim because while Moyes has come back in and said all the right things and has been exactly the presence we needed to change the mood around the club, I found Amorim's communication really odd. You know, sort of, I know people respect honesty, but I don't know if maybe he's been a little bit too honest, you know, saying that they might be the worst Manchester United team ever and all this sort of stuff. It does feel very defeatist. That doesn't feel very Man United. You know, you can't imagine Ferguson having a dreadful team and sort of talking them down that publicly. I always felt like United almost should hide those problems by being quite bullish and saying I will turn this around. But he just seems to be very miserable. And I guess, you know, it's been really tough for him, and it is a really tough job that I don't really know why anyone would want it now. You know, I guess the prestige of Manchester United will never go. But, I mean, will it? I mean, it does feel like it's sort of running out. It's been 10 years since they've been more than 10 years, isn't it, since Ferguson left. And this does feel like a club that I don't quite know how they reverse this decline. And if Amorim does it, fair play to him, but it's not felt like he's the man to do it so far, even though he is, working in a really difficult circumstances. So I don't know. Yeah, it would be lovely to just keep them where they are and move further above them.
It's like,
right?
do you not think it's testament to Moyes and the job he's done that we're all sat here saying, you know, we should beat these. And like the fact that, you know, you talk about their injury issues, but I think we'll probably have 8 or 9 first team players that aren't available for the game this weekend, and we're all sat here going, yeah, we should batter them. Like for Moyes to come in and change the mood around the place that quickly and to get a tune out of this team so quickly is, you know, a testament to the job he's done. I think he's got 1 point less than Amorim from 8 less games so far that they both had as managers this season. And like you look at this, like they are dreadful, but like they're still like sprinkled with good players in there, aren't they? United, like you think like so. Like they have been terribly run, terribly coached, but I think the fact that we're all so confident, there's a feeling, you know, I can't wait to get on the ground on Saturday. Like I'm so looking forward to this game, and that is down to the job that Moyes has done. And when you think about where we were after that Bournemouth match, and you know the way in which the manager was talking after that game, and what was it? I can't remember the exact quote. If you take away the goals, it was a good performance. Or take away the losses, we were on a good run. That was it, wasn't it? To think to where we were then compared to where we are now, it's been such a massive transformation.
If you take away Moyes' wins, it's a bad run.
You still have to draw against Liverpool.
I guess. I mean, Everton have got injury issues themselves. Matt Moyes seems to be managing it well, I guess. Yeah. We'll go into team selection. I guess we teased it on Monday, but he has got a bit of a selection dilemma. A good one, Decore or Alcaraz.
Yeah.
Who is it for you, I guess?
It's got to be Alcaraz, hasn't it? Like he's scored a goal, set one up, and played pretty well in the main. Like the lad's got to play. And I think that probably is the only dilemma, isn't it? It feels like the rest of the side picks itself. Maybe the only thing he might do is put Alcaraz wide and put Decore in the middle. Like maybe if he
Jack Harrison.
Yeah, maybe he decides to drop Harrison. But I thought Harrison was all right, actually, on Saturday. Thought he was good in the first half, faded a little bit in the second half, but the cross that ultimately leads to us scoring the winning goal was really good, and one of the virtues of playing him on the left. But like Alcaraz, I think the only reason you don't play him is that we don't know what the threshold is in terms of games he's got to start before we make that transfer permanent. But like everything you've seen from him so far has been really good, hasn't it? And you can't drop a lad who's scored and assisted. And
no, I didn't particularly like Alcaraz on the wing against Liverpool. I know he played there for a couple of minutes, but he changed it quite quick, didn't he? Which inevitably or indirectly maybe resulted in the goal. But Young came on, Alcaraz kind of went more central. So I think I'm along the lines with you. I think Alcaraz in for Decore. I mean, we've kind of had a bit of a nice week off, nice break, hopefully quite refreshed in terms of I don't think we're going to have many players back. I know Moyes does his pre-match press conference tomorrow at 1:30, so we'll find out more about injury updates. But in terms of what we've got, you would like to think that we've got enough to beat United. I mean, I can't even believe I've just said that we've got enough to beat United. That's insane when you think about it, isn't it? But we should do. I would be disappointed even if we drew.
Yeah, we can't be the sort of team that plays them back into form or gives them a way back into this season. We've done that too many times as a football club. That the form we're in and the form they're in, we have to win. And I would keep Alcaraz in the starting lineup. I'd keep Decore on the bench. I wouldn't change it. I think while he was an important figure in the derby in terms of getting under their skin, I don't think he played that well. Like the chances he missed, he doesn't look at his best at the moment. So I wouldn't bring him straight back into the starting 11 now.
Managers love Decore there, don't they?
Yeah.
Like
Dice
loved him. Moyes has spoken really positively about him.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be a bit of a disappointment if that team news dropped at 11:15. It'll be on Saturday, won't it? And Alcaraz is not in, but I think Moyes will know we're in Goodison Park. We'll be desperate to see that lad play, and I'm sure he will keep him in the team.
Predictions then? Do you want to go first?
1-0 Everton, late winner.
Okay. Good scenes, limbs at the end.
I love that. I think we'll win quite comfortably. I reckon 2-0.
Yeah.
Goal in each half.
I was going to go 2-0, but I'll just to be different, I'll go 3-1. I think we might get it because we've been scoring quite freely at Goodison when you think about it, haven't we? So
that's true.
There could be goals in it. Could be
a
an
big
exciting
man as well up front, haven't we? Nice.
For a neutral. There are scoreline predictions. We'll finish off. Any final thoughts, I guess, before we do? All good?
Yeah, just like can't remember being this content and happy about Everton for a long time. Probably the last time I felt a bit like this was, remember that weekend we beat Liverpool in the derby. Dean, you signed a new contract and we got the planning permission, I think, wasn't it, for Bramley-Moore? Like all those three things happened in like the space of a few days.
I can't even remember it, to be honest. That's so long ago.
It was during COVID, and it was sort of like everyone was like, "Oh, nothing's great at the moment." Obviously, Dean ended up leaving, and we had a bit of a rubbish finish to that season in the end after we won at Anfield. But yeah, it feels a bit like that.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just feel quite calm. It's quite nice.
You're always calm, though, Dan. So
yeah, to a point, but like
you calm at the match?
No. I like when I'm there, I find it incredibly stressful. But just it's quite nice not to have to think about Everton every day of the week. In my job, not as a sports journalist, and just agonising over everything that could happen to the football club, because at the minute it just feels like we're heading in the right direction, which is nice and very refreshing.
Good stuff. Okay, final thoughts from me. Remember to go and read Matt and Dan's articles. You can find them on the Liverpool Echo website. And visit podcast.feedspot.com. You can see the 25 best reach podcasts ranked from best to worst. And Everton Royal Blue podcast sits in third above the Liverpool Blood Red podcast, in fifth outside the Champions League spaces in the lowly Europa League spot. Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day and your week. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Matt Jones and Dan Haygarth, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.